The elevator doors opened on the fourth floor of Emory University Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit, and Naomi Bennett knew something was wrong before she even reached the nurse's station. It was 11 p.m. on a Tuesday in Atlanta, and her 12-hour shift had officially ended at 7 p.m. 4 hours ago. But she was still here, still in her scrubs, still checking monitors, still adjusting 4 lines, still refusing to leave. Naomi, go home. Her supervisor, Linda, appeared beside her with exhausted eyes. You've been here since 7 o'clock this morning. That's 16 hours. You're going to collapse. Not yet. Naomi's hands moved with practiced efficiency, adjusting the feeding tube for the tiny infant in pod 7. These twins aren't stable. Their oxygen saturation keeps dropping. Someone needs to watch them. The night shift can watch them. The night shift is understaffed. You know it. I know it. Naomi finally looked up, her dark brown eyes fierce despite the exhaustion pulling at her features. These babies were born at 26 weeks. They weigh barely 2 pounds each. If someone doesn't monitor them constantly, they'll die. So no, Linda, I'm not going home. Linda opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She'd worked with Naomi for 3 years and knew that look. Stubborn. Unshakable. The same look Naomi had worn when she'd worked double shifts to pay off her student loans, when she'd stayed overnight with a crack baby going through withdrawal, when she'd held a dying infant for 6 hours because the parents couldn't bear to watch. Fine. But I'm ordering you food and you're sitting down for at least 15 minutes. Naomi nodded, already turning back to the twins. Baby A the boy and baby B the girl. No names yet. Their mother had died during the emergency C-section 2 days ago. Complications from preeclampsia that had come on suddenly and viciously. The father had been in surgery himself, some kind of accident that had left him with a shattered shoulder and broken ribs. The babies had been alone in the world for 48 hours, fighting for their lives while their father fought for his. Till now. The NICU doors burst open with a violence that made every nurse jump. 4 men in dark suits entered, moving like a military unit. 3 positioned themselves by the exits. The 4th, taller, broader, with a face carved from stone and eyes like black ice, strode directly toward the nurse's station. My children, he said, his accent thick with Korean inflection. The twins. Where are they? Linda stepped forward, her professional smile firmly in place despite the obvious danger radiating from this man. Sir, visiting hours are over. You'll need to come back in the morning. I've been in the hospital for 2 days. His voice was low, controlled, but edged with something that made Naomi's survival instinct scream. Surgery, recovery, fighting to be released. My wife is dead. My children are here. And you will take me to them now, or I will find them myself. Mr. Park. Linda's voice wavered slightly. You're the father? Kangdae Park. He pulled out his ID with his good arm. The other was in a sling. And I'm not asking again. Naomi had seen enough. She stepped out from behind the monitors, still wearing gloves, still holding the chart for baby A. They're in pod 7. But you need to scrub in first. Premature babies have almost no immune system. Any bacteria you bring in could kill them. Kangdae's eyes locked onto her, and Naomi felt the full force of his attention like a physical weight. He was assessing her, measuring her, deciding if she was an obstacle or an ally. Show me, he said simply. 10 minutes later, Kangdae Park stood scrubbed, gowned, and masked beside the isolettes containing his son and daughter. His hands, large, scarred, clearly capable of violence, pressed against the plastic as if he could reach through it to touch them. They were so small. Naomi watched his face as the realization hit him. His children were tiny, fragile things hooked up to more machines than seemed possible. Ventilators. Heart monitors. 4 lines. Feeding tubes. Temperature regulators. Will they live? His voice cracked on the last word. Naomi should have given him the standard medical speech. The statistics. The cautious optimism. Though we're doing everything we can. Instead, she told him the truth. I don't know. Their lungs aren't fully developed. They're at high risk for brain bleeds, infections, and organ failure. Baby A, your son, has been more stable, but baby B, your daughter, keeps having oxygen desaturation episodes. Her heart rate drops, her breathing becomes irregular, and we have to intervene to bring her back. Naomi met his eyes. The next 48 hours are critical. If they make it through that, their chances improve significantly. What do they need? Constant monitoring. Immediate intervention when their vitals drop. Kangaroo care once they're stable enough. Skin-to-skin contact helps with temperature regulation and bonding. Breast milk if possible, though donor milk or specialized formula works too. Naomi paused. And they need someone who won't give up on them. Something shifted in Kangdae's expression. You've been here all day. It wasn't a question. 16 hours so far, Naomi admitted. My shift ended 4 hours ago. Why are you still here? Because they need me. Simple. True. The night shift is down 2 nurses. No one else has time to watch them as closely as they need. So I stayed. Kangdae stared at her for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the NICU. He bowed. Respectful. The kind of bow that meant something in Korean culture. A full 90-degree angle that left him vulnerable, that showed absolute respect and gratitude. Thank you, he said in English, then again in Korean. 감사합니다. 감사합니다. Naomi's cheeks warmed. I'm just doing my job. No. You're saving my children's lives. He straightened and she saw moisture in his eyes. What's your name? Naomi Bennett. Naomi. He said it carefully, pronouncing each syllable like a prayer. Will you stay? Through the night. Mr. Park, I've been here since. I know. 16 hours. And I'm asking you to stay longer. His eyes bore into hers with an intensity that made her skin prickle. I'll pay you. Whatever you want. Double your salary. Triple it. I don't care about the cost. I only care that the person watching my children is someone who refuses to let them die. Sir, it's not about money. Then what is it about? Naomi looked at the twins, at their tiny chests rising and falling with mechanical assistance, at the monitors tracking every heartbeat, every breath. It's about making sure they see tomorrow, she said quietly. Then help me make sure they do. Kangdae's hand, still pressed against baby B's isolette, trembled slightly. Please. You're the only person in this hospital who's told me the truth. You're the only one who seems to understand that my children are dying and you're fighting anyway. So I'm asking you, Naomi Bennett. Stay. Help me save them. Naomi should have said no. Should have insisted on going home, sleeping, following proper hospital protocol. Instead she checked her watch. 11:15 p.m. Okay, she heard herself say. I'll stay. But we do this my way. You follow every rule, every instruction, every protocol. Your money doesn't matter in my NICU, Mr. Park. Only your children matter. Understood. For the first time since entering the unit, Kangdae Park smiled. It was small, barely there, but genuine. Understood. Neither of them knew it yet, but Naomi Bennett had just agreed to 19 hours that would change both their lives forever. Because some bonds are forged in crisis. Some love stories begin with desperate fathers and stubborn nurses. And sometimes refusing to leave your shift means refusing to leave someone's heart. Naomi's world. Naomi Bennett had learned about survival early. Born in South Memphis to a single mother who worked 3 jobs, she'd grown up understanding that life didn't give you what you deserved. It gave you what you fought for. Her mother, Claudia, had fought for every meal, every piece of clothing, every school supply. And when Naomi showed an aptitude for science, her mother had fought to get her into a better high school, then fought to help her apply for scholarships, then fought to keep her in college when money ran out. Claudia Bennett had been a force of nature. Barely 5 feet tall but with the determination of a hurricane. She'd cleaned houses during the day, worked as a home health aide in the evenings, and picked up overnight shifts at a 24-hour diner on weekends. Also, Naomi could have opportunities she'd never had. You're going to be somebody, Claudia used to say, braiding Naomi's hair before school. You're going to help people, baby girl. I can feel it in my bones. Nursing school had been Naomi's war. 4 years of brutal studying, clinical rotations that left her sleeping in her car between shifts, and student loans that would take a decade to pay off. But she'd graduated top of her class, specialized in neonatal care because she'd always been drawn to the tiniest, most vulnerable patients, and landed a position at Emory, one of the best hospitals in the Southeast. Her mother had lived just long enough to see her walk across that stage in her scrubs, diploma in hand. I'm so proud of you, Claudia had whispered, already weak from the heart condition she'd hidden for months because medical bills were too expensive. You're going to save so many babies, Naomi. So many mothers are going to thank God for you. She died 2 months later. Heart attack. Quick. Painless, they said, though Naomi knew better. Nothing about losing your mother was painless. Naomi had been 24 years old and suddenly alone in the world. No siblings. No father, he'd left before she was born. No extended family that had stayed in touch after Claudia's funeral. Just Naomi and an apartment that felt too empty and a job that demanded everything she had to give. So she'd done what she'd always done, she worked. 12-hour shifts became 14, became 16. She took extra rotations. Covered for sick colleagues. Stayed late when babies needed her. Arrived early to check on patients from the night before. Work was safety. Work was purpose. Work meant she didn't have to go home to an empty apartment and remember that everyone she'd ever loved was gone. At 30 years old, Naomi Bennett was one of the best NICU nurses in Atlanta. She had no romantic life. The last man she dated had left after 3 months, claiming she was married to her job. Few friends outside the hospital. And a reputation for being both brilliant and impossible to work with because she refused to compromise on patient care, refused to accept good enough when babies' lives were at stake. She was fine with that. Babies didn't judge her. Babies didn't leave her. Babies didn't complain that she worked too much or cared too deeply or gave too much of herself to people who couldn't give anything back. Babies just needed her to fight for them, and fighting was the one thing Naomi Bennett had always known how to do. Kangdae's world. Kangdae Park had been born into violence on a cold November night in Seoul. His father, Park Jin-ho, ran one of South Korea's most powerful organizations. Not quite Mafia, not quite Yakuza, something uniquely Korean called a pabul, a faction that controlled everything from construction contracts to political campaigns to the flow of goods through Busan's shipping ports. The Park family had been in this business for 3 generations, building an empire on fear, loyalty, and strategic violence. Kangdae's childhood had been expensive suits and bodyguards, private schools and English tutors, and the constant understanding that he was being groomed to inherit an empire built on blood. His father had been brutal in his training, teaching Kangdae to fight before he could properly read, bringing him to business meetings, where deals were negotiated with guns on the table, showing him early that mercy was weakness and sentiment would get you killed. "You are Park Kangdae," his father would say, gripping his shoulder hard enough to bruise. "You carry our family name. Our reputation. You will be stronger than me, smarter than me, more feared than me. Understand?" Kangdae had understood. And he'd been good at it. Too good. By 25 he was running operations in 3 countries: South Korea, Japan, and China. By 30 he'd expanded into the American South, specifically Atlanta, where Korean immigration and business interests were growing rapidly. He controlled shipping at the port of Savannah, owned nightclubs and restaurants and construction companies that laundered money, and had politicians in his pocket from city council all the way to the state legislature. He was ruthless, efficient, untouchable. His nickname in the organization was Orem Ongja, Ice Prince, because he never showed emotion, never made decisions based on feeling, never let anything personal interfere with business. And utterly alone. Oh, he was surrounded by people constantly. Guards, associates, business partners, women who wanted the prestige of being with him. But alone in the way that mattered. No one who saw past the expensive suits and dangerous reputation to the man underneath. Then he'd met Minseo at a charity gala 3 years ago. She was a painter, delicate and soft-spoken, the daughter of a Korean diplomat stationed in Atlanta. She'd been standing in front of one of her own paintings, a landscape of Seoul in autumn, and when Kangdae approached she'd smiled at him with no fear in her eyes. "You're Park Kangdae," she'd said simply. "Everyone here is terrified of you. And you're not. Should I be? You're just a man looking at art." She tilted her head. "Though I suspect you see something different in this painting than most people do. What do you think I see? Home. And everything you left behind to come here." She'd been right. And that had unnerved him. They'd married within 6 months. It wasn't a love match, not at first. More like 2 lonely people finding comfort in each other's company. She painted while he worked. She asked no questions about his business. He made sure she had everything she needed. A studio with perfect light, supplies imported from Korea, gallery showings that sold out because of his connections. But over 2 years something real had grown between them. Minseo saw him, really saw him. The man who secretly donated to children's hospitals under anonymous names. who sent money to his mother back in Seoul every month. His father had disowned him for abandoning the Seoul operations. Who recited poetry by Yoon Dongju when he thought no one was listening. Who wanted desperately to be someone other than the Ice Prince but didn't know how. When Minseo got pregnant, Kangdae had been terrified and thrilled in equal measure. Twins. A boy and a girl. Yee, Minseo had said, her hand on her swelling belly. Sangdung-ai. Double blessing. Double luck. Kangdae had immediately begun planning, selling off the most dangerous parts of his operations, distancing himself from the violence, trying to build something his children could be proud of. He'd started legitimate businesses, made connections with federal prosecutors, offered information in exchange for immunity. He was trying to leave. For her. For them. Then Minseo's blood pressure had spiked during a routine checkup at 26 weeks. Preeclampsia, severe and sudden. The doctors had rushed her into emergency surgery while calling Kangdae frantically. But Kangdae had been across town dealing with a situation. A rival faction trying to muscle in on his territory. Lee Sang-min, a vicious man from Los Angeles who wanted Atlanta for himself. There'd been a confrontation in a warehouse. Guns drawn. Kangdae had tried to negotiate, tried to avoid bloodshed. Lee Sang-min had shot him anyway. Once in the shoulder, the bullet cracking bone. Another that cracked his ribs but missed his heart by inches. His men had returned fire. Lee Sang-min had fled. And Kangdae had collapsed, bleeding, while his phone buzzed with calls from the hospital. By the time his lieutenant Han Jin-woo got him to Emory's emergency room, Minseo was already gone. Massive hemorrhaging during the C-section. The doctors had tried everything, but her blood pressure had been too high, her organs already failing. She died on the operating table without ever holding her children. His children, premature, struggling, fighting for their lives, had been born into a world without their mother. Kangdae, lying in his own hospital bed with his wounds being stitched and his world falling apart, had made a decision. He would leave this life. All of it. The violence, the crime, the empire his father had built and he'd expanded. He would become the father his children deserved, even if it meant walking away from everything he'd built, even if it meant his father would never speak to him again, even if it meant starting over with nothing. But first he had to make sure they survived. Which brought him to Pod 7 at 11:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, standing beside a black woman with exhausted eyes and steady hands who was the first person to tell him the truth about his children's chances. Naomi Bennett. He didn't know it yet, but she was about to become the most important person in his life. The inciting incident. Hour 17:12 and 30 seconds a.m. Baby B's monitor started screaming. Naomi was at her side in seconds, her hands already moving before her brain fully processed what was happening. Oxygen saturation dropping, 92%, 89%, 84%. Heart rate plummeting, 110, 95, 87. The tiny girl was turning dusky, her lips and fingertips losing color, her chest barely moving despite the ventilator forcing air into her underdeveloped lungs. Bahia. Naomi barked to the nurse across the pod. She was already adjusting the ventilator settings, increasing oxygen flow from 40% to 60%, her movements precise despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Kangdae appeared beside her like a ghost. What's happening? Her lungs are collapsing. Apnea episode, she's forgotten how to breathe. Naomi's voice was calm, clinical, even as her heart raced. She drew up medication, calculated dosages in her head with practiced speed. This is what I warned you about. Her episodes are getting more frequent. The monitor continued its shrill alarm. Baby B's heart rate dropped further. 89, 84, 78. Do something. Kangdae's voice cracked, and Naomi saw his good hand grip the isolette so hard she thought the plastic might crack. I am doing something. Be quiet and let me work. She administered the medication through the 4-line, simultaneously adjusting the ventilator pressure, watching the monitors, counting seconds. The respiratory therapist arrived and together they worked in perfect sync. One squeezing the ambu bag to force oxygen into tiny lungs while Naomi made micro-adjustments to the equipment. Come on, sweetheart, Naomi murmured to the baby. Come back to us. You're stronger than this. Fight. 15 seconds. 30. 45. The heart rate began climbing. 82, 87, 93, 101. Oxygen saturation followed. 81, 86, 90, 94. Baby B's color improved, the duskiness fading as oxygen flooded her system again. 10 minutes later, the infant's vitals had returned to acceptable ranges. The monitor's alarm silenced. The crisis passed. For now. Naomi slumped against the counter, her hands finally shaking now that the emergency was over. Adrenaline was a funny thing. It kept you steady during the crisis, then left you trembling once the danger passed. Kangdae was still standing exactly where he'd been, his face pale beneath his naturally tan complexion, his good hand gripping the edge of the isolette so hard his knuckles were white. "How many times will this happen?" he asked hoarsely. "I don't know. Could be every few hours. Could stabilize by morning. It's impossible to predict with premature infants, especially at 26 weeks." Naomi stripped off her gloves and immediately put on fresh ones. Infection control was automatic for her. "This is why I stayed. The night nurses are good, excellent even, but they're covering twice as many babies as they should be. Response time matters. Seconds can mean the difference between life and brain damage or death." Kangdae looked at his daughter, so tiny, so fragile, barely the length of his forearm, and then at Naomi. "You saved her. I did my job." "No." He moved closer to Naomi, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixing with hospital antiseptic. Something expensive and woody with hints of bergamot. "You saved her because you refused to leave. Because you stayed when everyone else went home. Because you care about two babies you don't even know." Naomi felt her defenses rising. "Mr. Park." "Kangdae. Please. Call me Kangdae." "Mr. Park," she repeated firmly, needing that professional distance like a shield. "I stay late for a lot of patients. Your twins aren't special in that regard." It was a lie. She'd stayed late before, yes, but never this long. Never ignored her supervisor's direct orders to go home. Never pushed herself past the point of exhaustion for patients she'd only known for 2 days. But admitting that felt dangerous somehow, like opening a door she couldn't close again. "Then why are you still here at 12:30 in the morning? Why not hand them off to the night shift and go home?" His eyes searched her face like he was trying to read her soul. "What makes you stay, Naomi Bennett?" "Because I have nothing else to go home to," she thought but didn't say. "Because fighting for lives is the only thing that makes me feel alive. Because I lost my mother and I'll be damned if I lose any more people I'm supposed to protect. Because these babies have no one else and I know what it feels like to be alone in the world. Because they need me," she said instead, which was also true. Kangdae nodded slowly, accepting her answer even though they both knew there was more to it. "How much longer is your shift?" "Officially." Naomi checked the time. "Technically it ended 5.5 hours ago." "When will you leave?" "When they're stable." "That could be days." "Then I'll be here for days." Naomi met his eyes, refusing to back down. "I meant what I said earlier. I don't do this for money, Mr. Park. I do it because it's right. Because someone has to fight for these babies and right now I'm the one who can do it best." "I know." His voice softened in a way that made something in her chest flutter uncomfortably. "Which is why I'm asking you to let me help." "I don't need help. I need to do my job." "You need food. Rest. Someone to make sure you're taken care of while you're taking care of my children." Kangdae pulled out his phone with his good hand, his left, she noticed, so he must be left-handed. "I'm calling my driver. He'll bring you anything you want to eat. Korean food, American food, Ethiopian food. I saw your necklace, the Coptic cross. Are you Ethiopian?" Naomi's hand instinctively went to the small silver cross at her throat, a gift from her mother. "My family is. Several generations back. But I was born here." "Then Jinwoo will bring Ethiopian food if you want it. Or anything else. What do you like?" "Mr. Park." "Kangdae. And you're going to eat whether you want to or not, because if you collapse from exhaustion, my children lose the one person who's fighting hardest for them. So tell me what you want or I'll have him bring everything." Naomi wanted to argue. Wanted to maintain her professional distance. Wanted to pretend that this intense, dangerous man wasn't affecting her in ways that made her deeply uncomfortable. But she was hungry. Starving, actually. She'd skipped lunch to stay with a baby in Pod 3 who'd been having breathing problems and dinner had never happened. And he was right, she couldn't help his children if she collapsed. Fine. Something with protein. A sandwich maybe. And coffee. Strong coffee. Kang Dae's smile was small but genuine, transforming his face from cold and dangerous to almost handsome. Done. He made a call in rapid Korean, his voice changing completely when he spoke his native language. Softer, more musical, the harsh consonants somehow beautiful in his mouth. Naomi tried not to notice how his accent made even simple words sound like poetry, tried not to watch the way his lips moved around unfamiliar sounds. She failed at both. When he hung up he said, "Jin-woo will be here in 30 minutes. He's bringing food from several places so you have options." "That's really not necessary." "It's necessary to me." His eyes locked with hers. "You're saving my children's lives, Naomi. Let me do this small thing." The way he said her name, with just a slight emphasis on the second syllable, like it was precious, made her skin warm. This was dangerous. She recognized danger when she saw it, and Kang Dae Park was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with whatever criminal activities he was involved in. But she was too tired to fight anymore. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." His smile widened just slightly. "You're welcome." "천만에요." "천만에요." What does that mean? It means it's nothing, but literally it translates to, out of 10,000 this is nothing. In Korean culture we minimize our good deeds to show humility. He glanced at his children. "But keeping you strong enough to save my babies is everything, Naomi." "Not nothing. Everything." And there went her heart, doing that uncomfortable fluttering thing again. 30 minutes later, a man in a dark suit arrived with enough food to feed the entire NICU staff. Korean fried chicken that smelled like heaven, kimchi fried rice still steaming, japchae noodles with vegetables and glass noodles, and yes, a perfect club sandwich and coffee as requested. All from restaurants that must have been closed hours ago but had apparently opened just for Kang Dae Park's request. "This is too much," Naomi protested as Han Jin-woo, a compact man with sharp eyes, laid everything out on the break room table. "Then share with your colleagues. They're working hard too." Kang Dae set the sandwich and coffee directly in front of her. "Eat. Please. For me. For me. Not for the children. For him." Naomi tried to ignore the flutter in her chest at those words and failed completely. She ate the sandwich, turkey and bacon with avocado, somehow exactly what she would have ordered for herself, and drank the coffee, which was perfect. Not too hot, plenty of cream, just the right amount of sugar. "How did you know how I like my coffee?" she asked. "I watched you make it earlier. In the staff kitchen. You didn't notice me." Kang Dae sat across from her, not eating, just watching. "I pay attention to important things." "I'm not important. You saved my daughter's life 90 minutes ago. That makes you the most important person in my world right now." The intensity in his eyes made her look away, focusing instead on her sandwich. Around them, other nurses drifted into the break room, drawn by the smell of food. "Help yourselves," Kang Dae said, gesturing to the spread. "There's plenty." And just like that he won over the entire night shift. Nurses who'd been wary of him, this dangerous man in expensive clothes with armed guards, softened when he shared food, when he thanked them for caring for his children, when he bowed respectfully to each one. Naomi watched him work the room without seeming to work at all and realized, this was how he'd built an empire. Not just through fear and violence, but through understanding people, giving them what they needed, making them feel valued. It should have terrified her. Instead it fascinated her. Hour 18:02 a.m. Baby A had an episode this time. Less severe than his sister's but still terrifying. His oxygen saturation dropped to 88% and his heart rate became irregular. Naomi and Kang Dae worked in sync now without needing to speak. She handled the medical intervention while he stayed calm beside her, his presence somehow grounding instead of distracting. He didn't ask panicked questions or demand explanations. He just stood there, solid and steady, one hand on the isolette and the other clenched at his side. When it was over, when the baby boy's vitals had stabilized and he was breathing steadily again, Kang Dae did something that made Naomi's breath catch. He started singing. It was in Korean, soft and low, a lullaby that seemed older than time itself. 자장 자장 우리 아기 해쟁 해쟁 우리 애자이 잘도 잔다 우리 아기 젤도 젠더 우리 애자이. His voice was rough, unpracticed, but filled with so much love that Naomi felt tears prick her eyes. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the emotion. Desperate love, fierce protection, a father's promise to keep his child safe. My mother used to sing that to me, he said when the song ended, his voice thick. When I was small and couldn't sleep. Before I knew what my father did for a living, before I understood what kind of world I was being raised in. He touched the plastic of the isolette gently, his scarred hand so large against the tiny isolette. I want them to hear it. To know that despite everything they're loved. That they have a father who will do anything to protect them. Naomi swallowed hard against the lump in her throat. They can hear you. Even this small, babies recognize their parents' voices. Studies show that infants can distinguish their mother's voice from the first day of life, and father's voices within the first week. Then they should hear yours too. She blinked. What? Sing to them. They know you. You're the one who's been here since the beginning, fighting for them when their mother couldn't. Kangdae looked at her with such intensity it made her skin warm. They should know your voice as well as mine. Better than mine maybe, since you're here more than I am. I'm not their parent. I'm just their nurse. You're more than that. His voice dropped. You've been here for 19 hours, Naomi. You've saved their lives 3 times tonight. You've refused to leave them even when your body was begging for rest. If that's not love, I don't know what is. The word hung between them like a physical presence. Love. Naomi did love these twins. She'd loved them from the moment she first saw them, tiny and struggling and so determined to survive against impossible odds. She just never admitted it out loud before. I don't sing well, she warned, deflecting. I don't care. They won't care. They'll just hear someone who loves them. So Naomi Bennett, exhausted NICU nurse who never let herself get emotionally attached, who'd built walls around her heart after her mother died, sang a lullaby Claudia used to sing to her. Hush little baby, don't say a word, mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird, and if that mockingbird don't sing, mama's gonna buy you a diamond ring. Her voice was soft and slightly off-key, untrained and imperfect, but it was real. Honest. Filled with the same love that Kangdae's had been. When she finished, she looked up and found him staring at her with an expression that made her breath catch. Something between wonder and hunger, gratitude and desire. Beautiful, he whispered. And Naomi knew with absolute certainty that he wasn't talking about her singing. Escalation/protection phase. Hour 19:03 and 30 seconds AM. The twins were stable. Their vitals had been steady for 90 minutes, which was the longest stretch since Naomi's shift began 20 hours ago. She should leave. Should go home, shower, sleep, come back for her next scheduled shift in 8 hours. But her feet wouldn't move. You can go, Kangdae said softly. He'd pulled a chair between the 2 isolettes and hadn't left that spot in over an hour, one hand resting on each plastic dome like he could protect them through sheer willpower. I'll watch them. I'll call you immediately if anything changes. You don't know what to watch for. Then teach me. Naomi hesitated. This was against every protocol. Parents weren't supposed to monitor their own children without medical supervision, especially not premature infants this fragile. But Kangdae had proven himself capable, calm under pressure, willing to follow her instructions without question. And she was so tired. Her body ached. Her eyes burned. Her brain felt fuzzy around the edges. Okay, she heard herself say. But only for an hour. And you call me immediately if anything changes. I mean anything. If their color looks off, if the monitors beep even once, if your gut just says something's wrong. I will. I promise. Kangdae stood and guided her to a reclining chair in the corner of the pod, one they kept for parents doing kangaroo care. Sit first. Rest for a few minutes before you even think about driving home. I can't fall asleep here. Just rest your eyes. 5 minutes. I'll wake you. 5 minutes turned into 30. Naomi jerked awake to find a blanket draped over her shoulders, soft fleece smelling like lavender, and Kangdae still sitting vigil beside his children, one hand on each isolette like before. You should have woken me, she said, embarrassed, struggling to sit up. You needed to sleep more than I needed to wake you. They're fine. See. He gestured to the monitors, all showing stable vitals. I watched exactly like you taught me. Their oxygen saturation stayed between 92 and 96%. Heart rate steady. No alarms. Naomi checked her watch. 4 a.m. 21 hours since her shift started. I need to go home, she said, standing on shaky legs. Her body protested every movement. Shower. Change. Sleep for real. My driver will take you. I have a car. You're too exhausted to drive safely. Let Jinwoo take you home. He'll wait outside your building and bring you back when you're ready. Kang Dae's tone left no room for argument, that commander's voice that probably made grown men jump to obey. Please, Naomi. You've taken care of my children. Let me take care of you. Something in his voice, gentle but firm, commanding but respectful, concerned without being condescending, made her nod. Hey. But I'm coming back in 4 hours. That's all the sleep I need. Take 6. 4. 5. Deal. Kang Dae smiled, and Naomi realized with a jolt that she was bargaining with a man who probably intimidated everyone he met. A man whose driver was currently waiting to escort her home like she was someone important instead of just an overworked nurse. A man who was looking at her like she hung the moon. Dangerous, her brain warned. This is dangerous. But her heart didn't listen. Day 2, the shift changes. Naomi returned exactly 5 hours later. She'd set 3 alarms to make sure. Showered and wearing fresh scrubs but still exhausted to her bones. She found Kang Dae exactly where she'd left him. Only now he was on the phone speaking rapid Korean, his voice hard and cold, nothing like the gentle tone he used with his children. He switched immediately when he saw her, his expression softening like ice melting. You came back. I said I would. Naomi checked the twins' charts, scanning the notes from the night shift. How were they? Stable. Baby B had one small episode around 6 a.m., but the night nurse, Sarah, she said her name was, handled it. She said it wasn't serious, just a minor desaturation that resolved quickly. Kang Dae stood, stretching his good arm. His wounded shoulder was still in its sling. Your colleagues have been asking about you. Apparently staying for 19 hours straight is legendary even here. Naomi's cheeks warmed. I've stayed long before. Not like this, according to Nurse Linda. He moved closer. She said you never get attached. That you're the best nurse in the unit, but you keep everyone at arm's length. Patients, parents, colleagues. Everyone. Linda talks too much. Why do you do that? Kang Dae asked softly. Keep people away? That's not appropriate to ask. Nothing about this is appropriate, Naomi. His eyes locked with hers. You stayed for 19 hours for my children. You sang to them. You fought for them like they were yours. That's not professional distance. That's love. So I'm asking again, why do you keep people away? There was that word again. Love. I should check on them, Naomi said, deflecting, reaching for baby A's chart. But Kang Dae caught her wrist gently. Not restraining, just stopping her. His hand was warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle for someone who'd admitted to violence. Answer me first. Please. Why do you keep everyone away? Because everyone I've ever loved has left me, she thought. Because attachment means loss and I can't survive losing anyone else. Because it's easier to care for people temporarily than to let them into my heart permanently. Because it's easier, she said instead, the simplest truth. Easier than what? Than caring and losing them anyway. The words slipped out before she could stop them, raw and honest, and Naomi saw understanding dawn in Kang Dae's dark eyes. You've lost someone, he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. My mother. 3 years ago. Heart attack. Naomi pulled her wrist free but gently. She was everything to me. Raised me alone, worked herself to exhaustion to give me opportunities she never had. When she died, She swallowed hard. I decided it was safer not to let anyone else get that close. I'm sorry. His thumb had been stroking her wrist before she pulled away, and now his hand hung in the air between them. I lost my wife 2 days ago. I understand that pain. The emptiness. The feeling that you'll never be whole again. They stood like that for a long moment, two people bound by grief and exhaustion and something neither was ready to name yet. I need to work, Naomi said finally, needing to break the moment before she did something stupid like cry or lean into him or admit that she hadn't felt this seen by another person since her mother died. I know. But first eat. Kang Dae gestured to the break room where more food had appeared. Jinwoo must have been here while she was gone. Breakfast. Korean porridge, fruit, pastries. American breakfast too, eggs, bacon, toast. You need to keep your strength up. You can't keep feeding me. I can and I will. You're fighting for my children. That makes you important to me. And I protect what's important to me, Naomi. Always. The way he said her name, like a promise, like a prayer, made her shiver. Days 3 to 5. The pattern emerges. Naomi couldn't stay away. Her official shifts were 12 hours, 3 times a week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But she found herself coming in on Tuesday and Thursday too, her days off. Staying late after her shifts ended. Arriving early, sometimes hours early, to check on the twins before her shift officially started. Always with some excuse. She needed to check the latest lab results, update the twins' care plans, consult with Dr. Martinez about their feeding schedule. Valid reasons, all of them. But really she came for the twins. And for Kangdae. He was there constantly. Sleeping in the chair between the isolates. Learning to change diapers once the twins were strong enough to handle being touched more. Singing Korean lullabies at 3 a.m. when they were fussy. Asking Naomi endless questions about their care with the intensity of someone studying for the most important exam of his life. He also brought her food every single shift. Not just any food, he learned her preferences with an attention to detail that should have been unsettling but instead felt cherished. Spicy tuna rolls from Taka Sushi, the place she'd mentioned once in passing. Ethiopian food from Queen of Sheba, her favorite restaurant that she could rarely afford. Her favorite coffee from Octane with exactly the right amount of cream and sugar. Comfort food when she was stressed. Mac and cheese from a soul food place in Decatur that somehow tasted exactly like her grandmother's recipe. How did you know? She asked on day 4 when Jean Woo delivered her preferred breakfast sandwich from West Egg Cafe. I pay attention. Kangdae's smile was small. You deserve to be taken care of, Naomi. You spend all your time taking care of others. Someone should take care of you. He also assigned guards. Naomi didn't notice at first. But after a few days she realized that the same 2 men in dark suits, one tall and lanky, one short and muscular, were always near the NICU entrance when she arrived. They nodded respectfully. Moved aside immediately when she approached. Carried her bags if she had them. When she left the hospital at night, one would follow at a discreet distance until she was safely in her car. Then a black sedan would tail her home, waiting until she was inside her building before driving away. Are you having me followed? She demanded one evening, cornering Kangdae in the NICU pod while both babies slept. Protected, Kangdae corrected calmly. There's a difference. Why would I need protection? His expression went cold, the ice prince sliding into place. Because people know you're important to me. And in my world that makes you a target. Naomi's stomach dropped. Your world. You mean? I'm not a good man, Naomi. I've told you this. He set down the bottle he'd been preparing. The twins were almost ready to try oral feeding, a huge milestone. I've done terrible things. Made enemies who would hurt anyone close to me just to cause me pain, to show weakness in my organization. He met her eyes. So yes, you have guards now. They'll keep you safe. I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to ask. You became important to me the moment you refused to leave my children. And I protect what's mine. I'm not yours. The look he gave her was intense enough to steal her breath. His eyes darkened, his jaw tightened, and something predatory flickered across his face. Aren't you? Naomi should have been angry. Should have demanded he remove the guards, maintain professional boundaries, stop bringing her food and looking at her like she was precious and assigning men to follow her around Atlanta. But she couldn't. Because somewhere in the last 5 days, Kangdae Park had become important to her too. She thought about him constantly. Wondered what he was doing when she wasn't at the hospital. Caught herself smiling when Jean Woo appeared with food. Felt safer knowing those guards were outside, even though she'd spent 30 years taking care of herself without anyone's help. And worse, so much worse, she'd started to think of the twins as her babies. Not the Park twins. Not Kangdae's children. Hers. When baby A grabbed her finger during a feeding, she felt a surge of maternal love so fierce it terrified her. When baby B cried and settled immediately when Naomi held her, something in her chest cracked open. This was dangerous. This was attachment. This was everything she'd sworn never to do again after her mother died. But she couldn't stop. The cultural bridge. It happened gradually, naturally, like water finding its level. Kangdae taught her Korean phrases. 심폐 원주의 퍼스트, 안녕하세요. 애녕해이시여, 헬로, 감사합니다, 갬사입니다, 생유, 사랑해, 써랭해이, I love you. For the babies, he said when teaching her that last one, though his eyes suggested otherwise. So you can tell them in Korean too. Naomi taught him gospel songs, the ones her mother had sung. His eye is on the sparrow, blessed assurance, amazing grace. He sang them to the twins in his rough, accented voice, stumbling over English phrases he didn't know, and something in Naomi's chest cracked open every single time. They shared meals in the NICU break room at odd hours, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whenever both babies were sleeping and they could steal a moment. He introduced her to banchan, the small side dishes that came with every Korean meal, and explained the significance of each one. Kimchi represents patience, he said one night, showing her the fermented cabbage. It takes time to make properly. You can't rush it. Like raising children, yes. Or healing, Naomi added softly. Or healing, he agreed. She made him try her grandmother's mac and cheese recipe, smuggled in from home in a Tupperware container, and laughed when his eyes widened with surprise at how good it was. I have no words, he said, going back for seconds. The cheese, the texture, the way it's crispy on top but creamy inside. My grandmother's secret was adding a little bit of hot sauce to the cheese mixture. Just enough to give it depth without making it spicy. Your grandmother was a genius. They talked about food, culture, the strange experience of living between worlds. Kang Dae told her about growing up in Seoul, about the pressure to be perfect, about the violence that was normalized in his family. My father used to say, 피는 물보다 진하다, blood is thicker than water, Kang Dae said one night. He meant family loyalty above all else. But he also meant that violence is in our blood, passed down generation to generation. That I couldn't escape it any more than I could escape my genetics. Do you believe that? I used to. Now. He looked at his sleeping children. Now I think we choose what we pass down. I don't want to give them violence and fear. I want to give them safety and love. Naomi told him about growing up poor in Memphis, about her mother's struggles, about the shame she'd felt as a kid when they couldn't afford things other families had. But my mama always said, baby girl, we might not have money but we have love. And love is the only currency that really matters in the end. Naomi smiled sadly. I didn't understand what she meant until she was gone. Then I realized, every sacrifice she made, every extra shift she worked, that was love. Tangible, concrete, life-changing love. She sounds like an extraordinary woman. She was. You would have liked her. She had this way of making everyone feel valued, like they mattered. Naomi paused. Actually, you remind me of her a little. I remind you of your mother? Kang Dae looked surprised. The way you are with your children. The way you're trying to change your life for them. The way you notice small things and remember them. That's what she did. Noticed when I was sad and needed my favorite meal. Remembered what made me happy and tried to give it to me. Naomi met his eyes. That's love, Kang Dae. What you're doing, that's love. Something shifted in his expression. He reached across the table and took her hand, threading their fingers together. In Korea we have a saying, he said softly. 밥 같이 먹는 사람. 밥 같이 먹는 사람. It means, person you eat rice with. More than just sharing food. It means someone you share your life with, your joys and sorrows, your daily existence. That's beautiful. You've been sharing food with me and my children for 2 weeks now. In my culture that makes you family, Naomi. That bond is sacred. Unbreakable. Kang Dae. Her voice came out whisper soft. I know what you're going to say. Professional boundaries. You're just their nurse. This is temporary. His thumb stroked her knuckles. But tell me honestly, do you still feel like, just their nurse? No, she thought. I feel like their mother. And I'm terrified of what that means. Terrified that I've let them past my walls. Terrified that when they leave, when this ends, I'll lose them the way I lost my mother and I won't survive it. They're getting stronger, she said instead, deflecting. Another week, maybe 2, and they'll be ready to go home with you. And then what? You disappear from their lives? From my life. Kang Dae's hand tightened on hers. Do you really think I could let you walk away after everything? That's how it works. Nurses don't follow patients home. You're not just any nurse. And they're not just any patients. He leaned closer, close enough that she could see flecks of gold in his dark eyes. When they come home, come with us. Be their nanny, their nurse, I don't care what title we use. Just don't leave them. Don't leave me. Don't leave me. Naomi's heart hammered. That's crazy. We barely know each other. I know you stayed for 19 hours to save my children. I know you sing gospel songs at 3 a.m. I know you take your coffee with too much cream and you only eat Ethiopian food when you're sad because it reminds you of your mother. Kangdae's voice dropped. I know you're terrified of getting close to people because you've lost too many. And I know that when you hold my children you look at them like they're yours. Like you died to protect them. That's not a nurse looking at patients, Naomi. That's a mother looking at her babies. Tears burned Naomi's eyes. Stop. Why? Because I'm saying what we're both feeling. His free hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. I'm falling in love with you, Naomi Bennett. I didn't plan it. Didn't want it. Wasn't looking for it. But watching you fight for my children, watching your strength and compassion and stubborn refusal to give up even when you're exhausted, how could I not fall in love with you? You don't love me. You're grateful. You're traumatized. Your wife just died and you're latching onto the first person who showed you kindness. Don't. His voice was sharp now. Don't diminish this by making it about grief or gratitude. I loved Minsu. I'll always love her memory. But what I feel for you is different. It's not replacing her. It's. He struggled for words. It's like I was drowning and you pulled me out of the water. Like I was frozen and you thawed me. Like I was lost and you showed me the way home. Kangdae. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me honestly that you don't think about me when you're not here. That you don't look for me when you arrive. That your heart doesn't beat faster when I'm close. Tell me and I'll back off. I'll maintain professional distance. I'll stop bringing you food and teaching you Korean and looking at you like you're everything I never knew I needed. But you have to tell me honestly, Naomi. Can you do that? She couldn't. Because he was right about all of it. She did think about him constantly. Did look for him the moment she arrived for her shifts. Did feel her heart race when he was close. And that terrified her more than anything. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me. Of this. Caring. Of letting myself love them and love you and then losing everything when reality crashes back in. Because this isn't reality, Kangdae. This is a crisis bubble. We're both traumatized and exhausted and not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly in my life. He stood still holding her hand and pulled her to her feet. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led her to the NICU pod where the twins slept. Both babies were stable, growing stronger each day. Baby A, who Kangdae had started calling James, he'd admitted, though nothing was official yet, was up to 3 pounds. Baby B, Grace he called her, was just under 3 pounds but gaining steadily. Look at them, Kangdae said softly. Really look. Do you know what I see? Your children. Our children. He said it firmly, no hesitation. Because you've cared for them as much as I have. You've fought for them harder than I could. You've given them your time, your expertise, your love. In every way that matters, Naomi, you're their mother. Their mother is dead. And you're here, living, breathing, loving them. Kangdae turned to face her. Minsu would want this. Would want them to have someone like you. She told me once when she was pregnant that she hoped if anything happened to her, I'd find someone who could love them as fiercely as she would have. Someone strong and brave and good. I'm not good. You're the best person I know. He took both her hands. So I'm asking you again. When they're ready to leave the hospital, come with us. Move into my home. Help me raise them. Be the mother they need and deserve. And what am I to you? The question came out before she could stop it. Your employee? Your children's nanny? What? Kangdae's smile was slow and dangerous and full of promise. What do you want to be? Everything, she thought but didn't say. I don't know, she said instead. Then let me show you. And he kissed her. The threat emerges. It started with whispers. On day 8, Naomi noticed the hospital staff treating her differently. Curious stares in the hallways. Hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when she approached. Even Linda looked at her with something like concern mixed with fear. What's going on? Naomi finally demanded, cornering Linda in the supply room. Linda glanced around nervously, then pulled Naomi deeper into the room away from the door. Is it true? Are you involved with Kangdae Park? Involved is a strong word. Naomi, do you know who he is? Really? Linda's voice dropped to a whisper. I did some research. He's not just any businessman. He's Korean Mafia. He controls half of Atlanta's underground operations. Shipping, gambling, protection rackets. There are rumors about murders, though nothing's ever been proven. The hospital administration is terrified because he's been here every day, and they think he's going to use his connection to you to leverage something from the hospital. Naomi's blood ran cold. That's ridiculous. He's just here for his children. Is he? Because his men are stationed at every entrance. Because expensive gifts keep arriving for you. Because everyone knows he's claimed you as his, and in his world that means something dangerous. He hasn't claimed me. Hasn't he? Linda's expression softened. Naomi, I care about you. You're the best nurse I've ever worked with. You're also my friend, even if you try to keep everyone at arm's length. But you're playing with fire here. Men like Kangdae Park don't have normal relationships. They have possessions. Power dynamics. And if his enemies find out you're important to him, you become a target. You're being dramatic. Am I? 3 of his men were arrested last week for assault. One of his nightclubs was raided by the feds. There's an active investigation into his business operations. Do you really want to be associated with that? Naomi had no answer. That night she confronted Kangdae in the hospital's meditation room, a quiet space away from the NICU where they wouldn't be overheard. Tell me the truth. All of it. What are you? He didn't flinch. Didn't try to deflect or lie. Just looked at her with those dark eyes and said, "What do you want to know? Are you in the Mafia? Korean Mafia, organized crime, whatever you want to call it." Not exactly. The Korean equivalent is more complex, but essentially, yes. My organization controls certain operations in Atlanta and the Southeast. Illegal operations? Yes. Do you hurt people for a living? Silence. Long and heavy. Yes, he finally said. Or I did. I'm leaving that world, Naomi. For my children. For you. I've already started the process. Divesting from the most dangerous operations, selling my interests to associates who can run them, cutting ties with the violent parts of the business. But yes, I've done terrible things. Things I'm not proud of. Things that probably damn me in the eyes of God and any decent person. Have you killed people? Yes. The word hung between them like a blade, sharp and final. Does that change how you see me? Kangdae asked quietly. Knowing what I am? What I've done? Naomi wanted to say yes. Wanted to run screaming from this man who just admitted to murder like it was a business decision. Wanted to protect herself from the danger he represented. But she looked at him, really looked. At the exhaustion in his eyes, the way his wounded shoulder still pained him though he never complained. At the gentle hands that changed his baby's diapers and the voice that sang them lullabies. At the man who'd bowed to her with respect, who brought her food and protected her and looked at her like she was precious. I don't know, she admitted. I need time to think. How much time? I don't know that either. Kangdae nodded slowly, accepting her answer though she could see it cost him. But you know Linda's right. Being involved with me puts you in danger. Then let me protect you properly. I don't want to need protection. I want a normal life, Kangdae. A life where I don't have guards following me and people whispering about whether I'm a gangster's mistress. I want to take care of babies without worrying that someone might hurt them to get to you. You think I want this for you? His voice rose for the first time, anger and anguish mixing. You think I enjoy knowing that loving you puts a target on your back? But it's too late, Naomi. You're already in my world whether you want to be or not. The moment you fought for my children, the moment you became important to me, you became visible to my enemies. Then I'll quit. Walk away. They can assign a different nurse to the twins. It won't matter. Kangdae gripped her shoulders, his hands gentle despite the urgency in his voice. They already know. My rivals, my enemies, they've been watching this hospital for 2 weeks. They know I've been here every day. They know about you, about how much time we spend together, about the food deliveries and the guards outside. Walking away won't make you safe, Naomi. It'll just make you vulnerable and alone instead of vulnerable and protected. Terror gripped her chest. What are you saying? I'm saying that the only way to keep you safe is for you to stay close to me, where my men can protect you 24/7. I'm saying that whether you like it or not, you're part of my world now. And I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry, but I won't apologize for loving you enough to make that happen. For caring enough to keep you alive even if you hate me for it. Before Naomi could respond, Kangdae's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression went from anguish to deadly in a heartbeat. Get away from the windows. Now. What? He shoved her to the ground just as the meditation room's window exploded inward. The gunfire. Screaming. Alarms. Kangdae covered Naomi's body with his own, his wounded shoulder be damned, protecting her from the flying glass that showered over them like deadly rain. She felt him jerk once. A bullet hitting his back, stopped by body armor she hadn't known he was wearing under his shirt. Around them chaos. Security guards rushed toward the sound. Nurses screamed. Patients and visitors dove for cover. And the NICU, oh God, the NICU was just down the hall. Stay down. Kangdae barked. He pulled a gun from his jacket, how long had he been carrying that in a hospital? And returned fire through the broken window. 3 men in masks were outside in the parking lot, shooting into the building with automatic weapons. The window barriers held but cracks spiderwebbed across the bulletproof glass. Kangdae's phone was in his hand even as he fired. He barked orders in Korean, rapid, commanding, the voice of someone used to leading men into battle. Within 90 seconds his guards arrived in force. More gunfire. Shouting. Then silence as the attackers fled. When it was over, when the ringing in Naomi's ears finally faded enough to hear again, Kangdae hauled her to her feet. Are you hurt? No, but the twins. She ran. Down the hallway toward the NICU, her heart in her throat. Please God, please let them be okay. The NICU doors were locked down. Protocol during violent incidents. But security recognized her and let her through immediately. Inside chaos. Nurses had moved all the babies away from the windows. Someone had erected portable barriers around each isolette. And in Pod 7, surrounded by extra protection that Naomi now realized Kangdae's men must have installed days ago, James and Grace were screaming. Not hurt. Just terrified by the noise. Naomi's knees went weak with relief. She rushed to them, checking them over with shaking hands. No injuries. No trauma beyond the fear. They're okay, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Oh God, they're okay. Kangdae appeared beside her, his face spattered with blood that wasn't his. Some attacker who'd gotten too close. We need to leave. All of us. Now. I can't leave the hospital. Those men just tried to kill you and my children. They'll try again, Naomi. Next time they might succeed, might bypass my guards, might hit their targets. His eyes were wild with fear and rage. I'm taking you somewhere safe. Both of you. All 3 of you. Both of us. You and my children. The 3 people I love most in this world. He gripped her arms, desperate. You're coming with me, Naomi. Not as their nurse. As their mother. As my woman. As the person I will die to protect. Kangdae. No more arguing. No more professional distance. You're mine now. Say it. Later Naomi would wonder what possessed her. Maybe it was the adrenaline. Maybe it was the way he'd covered her body with his own, taking a bullet meant for her. Maybe it was the look in his eyes, desperate and determined and so full of love it hurt to see. Or maybe it was the fact that she'd finally admitted to herself what she'd known for days. She loved him. Loved his children. Loved this dangerous, complicated man who sang lullabies and killed people and looked at her like she was salvation. I'm yours, she heard herself say. I'm yours, Kangdae. I'm yours. Again. I'm yours. He kissed her then. Hard, possessive, claiming. She kissed him back with equal fervor, 3 weeks of denial crashing down at once. His hands were in her hair, her hands fisted in his shirt, and neither of them cared that they were covered in glass dust and that there was blood on his face and that hospital security was probably watching. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Kangdae pressed his forehead to hers. I'm getting you out of here. We're going to my safe house. A property I own outside the city. Private, guarded, secure. The twins will come with us as soon as they're medically cleared for discharge. That could be days. Then I'm hiring you privately to be their nurse during transport and recovery. I'll pay you whatever you want. I'll get written orders from Dr. Martinez. Whatever it takes, Naomi. You're not leaving my sight again. None of you are. I almost lost all 3 of you today, and I will burn this entire city to the ground before I let that happen again. Naomi looked at the twins, at the shattered windows down the hall, at the blood on the floor where people had been wounded trying to protect the hospital. Linda's words echoed in her mind. Men like Kangdae Park don't have normal relationships. But Naomi realized she didn't want normal anymore. She wanted this fierce, dangerous man who'd die for his children. Who'd protected her with his own body. Who looked at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. Okay, she said. I'll come with you. But on one condition. Anything. You teach me how to protect myself. Korean martial arts, gun training, whatever I need. No more being a damsel in distress. If I'm in your world, if I'm going to be a mother to your children, I need to be able to fight back. To protect them if you're not there. Kang Dae's smile was sharp and proud, the expression of a man who just recognized a worthy partner. Deal. I'll teach you everything. Taekwondo umthurjeomsul. Sword fighting, tactical shooting. You'll be deadly, Naomi. I promise you that. Good. She kissed him again, softer this time. Because I'm not losing this family. Not to your enemies, not to fear, not to anything. We're going to survive this, Kang Dae. Together. Together, he echoed. Always. The house in Buckhead was different from the safe house they'd stayed in for those first terrifying weeks. Brighter. More open. Filled with baby toys scattered across expensive rugs, 2 cribs in the nursery upstairs, and the smell of Mrs. Song's cooking, galbajim braised short ribs. Tonight, blending with the Ethiopian doro what Naomi had taught her to make. The twins were thriving. At 8 months old, they were hitting every developmental milestone and exceeding expectations. James, officially named Park Jiwoo James, was crawling everywhere and pulling himself up on furniture. Grace, Park Yijing Grace, was more cautious but had just said her first word, Mama. Looking directly at Naomi when she said it. Naomi had cried for an hour, overwhelmed with joy and terror in equal measure. Because Mama meant attachment. Meant permanence. Meant she was really, truly their mother now and there was no going back. Kang Dae had officially left his criminal organization. The transition hadn't been easy. He'd had to make deals, pay off rivals, work with federal prosecutors to testify against his former associates in exchange for immunity. He'd turned over evidence that led to dozens of arrests, effectively dismantling the Korean organized crime network in the Southeast. His father had disowned him. Publicly, brutally, in a phone call Naomi had overheard that made her want to cry for the pain in Kang Dae's eyes. But his mother had called afterward. Quietly, secretly. To tell him she was proud. That he was doing what she'd always wanted him to do. Choose a different path. Now Kang Dae ran legitimate businesses. Import, export operations that were completely legal, commercial real estate, restaurants and nightclubs that had been scrubbed clean of any criminal ties. He worked with federal authorities as a consultant on Korean organized crime. And he spent his evenings playing with his children, teaching them Korean words alongside English, singing them lullabies in both languages. He'd also asked Naomi to marry him. Properly, with a ring that had been his grandmother's. A delicate gold band with a small diamond that was more beautiful than any flashy modern ring could ever be. He'd knelt in front of her in their bedroom one night after the twins were asleep, and asked her in Korean first, Nawa jailhan he juzijesio. Then in English, will you marry me, Naomi Bennett? Will you be my wife, the mother of my children, my partner in all things? She'd said yes without hesitation. Because loving him had stopped being terrifying and started being the most natural thing in the world. The wedding was small. Just Mrs. Song Jin-woo, a few trusted friends, and Pastor Williams from Naomi's childhood church who'd flown to Atlanta to officiate because any woman brave enough to love a former gangster and raise his babies deserves a proper Christian wedding. They'd exchanged vows in Korean and English, standing in the living room with the twins playing on a blanket between them. 사랑합니다. 평생 당신을 지킬 것을 아껴, Kang Dae had said, his voice thick with emotion. I love you. I promise to protect you for my entire life. I promise to choose you every day, to build a life with you that's worth all the darkness we survived to find each other. 나도 사랑해요. I love you too, Naomi had replied in her halting Korean, making Kang Dae's eyes shine with tears. I promise to love you, to raise our children with you, to never leave you, even when you drive me crazy with your overprotectiveness and your tendency to hire too many guards. They'd laughed and cried, and when Grace started fussing, they'd both reached for her at the same time, their hands tangling together as they soothed their daughter. A family. Complete. Now, 6 months into marriage, Naomi stood in the nursery watching Kang Dae read to the twins before bed. James was practically asleep already, thumb in his mouth, his father's dark eyes already drooping closed. Grace was fighting it, her eyes drooping and snapping back open like she didn't want to miss anything. 자장가 부를까? Should I sing a lullaby? Kangdae asked the babies in Korean. Grace clapped her hands, her new favorite response to everything. So he sang soft and low, the same lullaby he'd sung that first night in the NICU. 자장 자장 우리 아기 잘도 잔다 우리 아기. Naomi's heart swelled watching him. This dangerous man who'd become so gentle. This former criminal who read bedtime stories and changed diapers without complaint and sang lullabies like they were prayers. They love when you read to them, she said from the doorway. Kangdae looked up and smiled. That smile, the one he reserved only for her and their children, still made her breath catch even after months of marriage. Come here, he said softly, switching to English. She moved to his side. He pulled her onto his lap with one arm, still holding the book with the other, and continued reading. James and Grace both reached for her immediately, and soon all four of them were tangled together in the rocking chair. Baby hands patting faces, Kangdae's arm around Naomi's waist, his voice reading Goodnight Moon in accented English. Perfect. After the twins were asleep, Kangdae led Naomi to their bedroom. Not for passion, though that would come later, it always did with them, but just to hold her. I have something to tell you, he murmured against her hair. Should I be worried? No. Excited, I hope. He pulled back to look at her. The federal prosecutor called today. My testimony secured convictions for 15 members of my former organization, including Lee Sang-min, the man who shot me, the man who ordered the hospital attack. He's going to prison for the rest of his life, Naomi. It's over. The investigation is closed. I'm officially free. Naomi's breath caught. Free? Completely. Completely. Clean record going forward. No more looking over our shoulders. No more wondering when the past will catch up. His hand cupped her face. We can go anywhere, do anything. Be anyone we want to be. What do you want to be? Your husband. Their father. A better man than I was. Kangdae smiled. I also have something else to tell you. Remember that building I bought last month? The one on Peachtree. The old medical office? I'm converting it into a private NICU facility for premature babies whose families can't afford extended hospital stays. Completely free of charge. Staffed by the best nurses I can hire. He watched her reaction carefully. Run by you if you want. Dr. Naomi Park, director of the Grace and James Neonatal Center. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. Are you serious? Completely. You told me once that you became a NICU nurse because you wanted to give babies the fighting chance your mother fought to give you. Well, now you can do that without worrying about hospital politics or insurance companies or being forced to leave patients who still need you. His thumb wiped away her tears. What do you say? Want to build something beautiful together? Yes. She kissed him, deep and loving. God, yes. We'll save so many babies, Kangdae. So many families. That's the idea. My mother always said the best way to atone for past sins is through future good deeds. 선행으로 과거를 치유하다. 힐 더 페스트스루 고드 엑선즈. I can't undo the things I've done, Naomi. But I can spend the rest of my life trying to balance the scales. They made love that night with a tenderness that still surprised Naomi. For someone who'd lived such a violent life, Kangdae touched her like she was made of glass and gold. Precious. Irreplaceable. Sacred. He whispered in Korean as they moved together. Serno Sarangyo, I love you. 당신은 내 전부, 당신은 내 지은 바요, you are my everything. 아우니 함께 영원히 함께해요, together forever. Afterward, lying in his arms, Naomi thought about the journey that had brought them here. A desperate father bursting into a NICU at midnight. A stubborn nurse refusing to leave her shift. 19 hours that had turned into forever. Do you ever regret it? She asked softly. Everything you had to give up to be with me? Never. Kangdae's arms tightened around her. I gave up a criminal empire, but I gained a family. I gave up power built on fear, but I gained love built on respect and trust. I gave up a life where I was constantly looking over my shoulder, but I gained a future where I can sleep peacefully knowing the woman I love is beside me and our children are safe. He kissed her forehead. You saved my children's lives, Naomi. But more than that, you saved mine. You showed me I could be more than what my father made me. That I could choose a different path. You saved mine too, she admitted. I was so lonely before you. Working myself to death because I had nothing else, no one else. You gave me a reason to come home. A family. A purpose beyond just surviving. We saved each other then. Kangdae smiled. Not bad for 19 hours in a hospital. Naomi laughed and settled against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. Through the baby monitor, she could hear James and Grace breathing steadily in their sleep. Safe. Thriving. Her family. She'd walked into the hospital that night expecting just another shift. Instead, she'd found everything she'd ever needed and hadn't known she was looking for. A love worth fighting for. Children who called her Iyama Mama. A dangerous man who'd become gentle for her. And a future stretching bright and endless before them. Some stories begin with crisis. Some bonds are forged in 19 hours of desperation and refusal to give up. Some nurses refuse to leave their shifts and end up refusing to leave a reformed gangster's heart. This was their story. And it was just beginning. The Grace and James Neonatal Center opened 6 months later. Naomi stood beside her husband on opening day, watching premature babies fighting for their lives just like James and Grace had once fought, and felt her mother's presence like a benediction. This was her purpose. Her calling. Her way of honoring Claudia Bennett's memory, by giving other children the fighting chance her mother had fought to give her. And when Kangdae took her hand and squeezed gently, she squeezed back. Serno, she said, the Korean words coming easier now after months of practice. Naya, I love you too, he replied. Always. Some love stories begin in crisis. This one began with a desperate father and a stubborn nurse and 19 hours of refusal to give up. And it would last a lifetime.